Ronald Morrish by Christina James and Chastity Dykes. Today's practice is tomorrow's performance. Ronald Morrish is an educator, a behavior specialist since 1972 in Canada. He taught for 26 years as a teacher. In 1997, he became an independent consultant in discipline. Presently, he conducts and maintains a helpful atmosphere by sharing his work with teachers around the world. Ronald Morrish has published 3 books, all focusing on real discipline. His first book is Secrets of Discipline, published in 1997. It focuses on the 12 keys to raising responsible children without deal-making or arguments. His second book, With All Due Respect, was published in 2000. It focuses on improving teachers' discipline skills and building effective discipline programs. His final book, Flip Tips, was published in 2003. Some of his tips include discipline is a process, not an event. Discipline is about giving the structure they need, not a punishment. Discipline is the steps you take so students won't misbehave. Discipline is about preparing students to make choices later once they are more responsible. Teachers make the rules, not the students. Teach appropriate behavior before unwanted behavior occurs. Discipline should end in correct behavior, not a punishment. Ronald Morrish believes modern discipline is wrong in many aspects. He blames modern society for the me-first attitudes. He believes that the students think about themselves far too often and not about others. He believes students don't accept responsibility for their actions, and teachers are giving bad advice. Teachers involving students in decision-making before they are mature enough is ill-advised and leads to problems. For example, having students make the classroom rules before they know responsibility and what's expected of them can only lead to problems in the classroom in the future and makes them question authority. He feels that modern discipline fails because, 1, it doesn't demand proper behavior. It allows the students to behave as long as they feel like they don't care about the consequences. This is only effective unless they truly find those consequences undesirable. A system based on fear of consequences cannot be effective unless the consequences are truly intolerable. 2, it doesn't teach students how to behave. Students need rules and limits implicated so the students know how to behave and what's expected of them. 3, it leaves teachers stuck with bargaining, which should never occur. Morrish agrees that discipline is a problem with manipulation of teachers and refusal to cooperate. He also agrees that if discipline is to be effective, students must be taught what is acceptable and unacceptable before they can make choices. Real discipline is a theory that Morrish stands behind and advocates to teachers around the world today. Real discipline is not a new theory, but is an organized set of techniques. It teaches students to be respectful, responsible, and cooperative. Both discipline and behavior management are needed. Real discipline teaches students how to behave, whereas behavior management teaches students the procedures that keep students on task to not misbehave. It is not effective on helping students learn how to behave. It emphasizes careful teacher guidance. Teachers must guide students to learn to conduct themselves in an acceptable manner. The real discipline teaches students how to behave properly. It trains the students on working with structure and rules, which are the tools we need as adults as well. In younger years, students are not wise but impulsive, and they need guidance to instruct them on what's right and wrong. Students should be allowed to make choices, but only once they are mature enough to do so. There are 3 phases for Morrish's real discipline. The most important phase is the first phase, training for compliance. Compliance means following directions. For example, a driving instructor, the trainer gives the directions and the learner must follow them. Teachers should teach routine behavior they want so the students know how to follow. Morrish highlights on the words rules. Rules are the descriptions of how students behave. Rules are what students should do. Teachers should make the rules, not the students. Do not ask the students if they agree. Be firm. Students need to learn who is in charge. Make sure they obey, and the teacher is committed to the students following the rules. An example of a rule would be show respect to the others at all times. Another keyword is limits. Limits tell which behavior is not allowed. They can be formal or informal. They should tell the students what not to do. An example of limits would be no name calling in this room. Another keyword Morrish highlights on is authority. Authority is respecting the teacher or person in charge. This should be your first task. The teacher should clearly communicate what is expected. If they question the teacher's authority, you should respond with, "It is my job." Begin each school year by training your students to pay attention, follow directions, and act responsibly. The key ideas for this phase include the most important job is helping the students become successful in school and life. Students must learn self-control, good behavior, and do what is expected to the best of their ability. Teachers should use direct instruction and close supervision. Do not overlook small misbehaviors. Insist the students behave properly. This is the best strategy for enforcing rules. Punishment is not needed. Do not use consequences. Make them redo the behavior correctly. Never give students a choice when it comes to limits. Do not bargain or give special privileges. You should implement these through explanation, demonstration, feedback, and repetition. The second phase in real discipline involves teaching students the skills, attitudes, and knowledge they need for cooperating, behaving properly, and assuming responsibility. When beginning this phase, students should already have established that they understand the rules, limits, and authority taught in phase 1. This phase should teach them how to be courteous, work in groups harmoniously, set goals, organize tasks, manage time, and resolve conflicts. Results should be produced. Don't wait for them to reproduce themselves. The best ways to teach is through direct instruction or supervised practice. When students do not comply, do not punish or scold them. Make them redo in an acceptable way. The third phase of real discipline is called choice management. It helps students move toward greater independence by gradually allowing them the opportunity to make choices as they show they are able to handle them. Teachers should accept quality work and nothing less. Independent choices. Independence requires balancing personal rights with personal responsibility. Others' rights and needs should be considered. Unsupervised situations should be an opportunity to demonstrate responsibility. The key ideas of this phase are: if students don't care about the outcomes, they should not be allowed to make choices. The goal of real discipline is to help students become self-disciplined. Self-discipline is defined as behaving appropriately whether the teacher is present or not, which should be taught since day 1. Independence is not doing your own thing, but it is doing the right thing on your own. This is Ronald Morrish's discipline model. It overviews the phases and his goals for real discipline. There are 11 steps in implementing good discipline program. The 11 steps are: decide in advance how you want your students to behave, design a supporting structure, establish a threshold for behavior at school, run a 2-week training camp, teach students how to behave appropriately, set the stage for quality instruction, provide active and assertive supervision, enforce rules and expectations, focus on prevention, set high standards, and treat caregivers as partners. Morris believes that students should face consequences when they misbehave. Consequences are not punishments. Teachers should not use the if-then statements. You should state what you expect from the students. His favorite consequence is to have the students repeat the behavior correctly. He coins this as do-over. Some other consequences include make an improvement plan, provide compensation, write a letter, or teach younger children. The purpose of discipline is to make students do what they don't want to do. For example, rules, homework, and staying quiet. We should do these without praise or reward if students do what is expected of them. Reward should be very rare and used sparingly. Teachers should use personal attention and approval when students go above and beyond. There are many pros and cons we found to Ronald Morrish's real discipline. Some of the pros include students will learn responsibility and respect. It will lead to a functional classroom when rules and limits are followed, and it helps with time management. Some of the cons we found are it lacks freedom or creativity, and it could lead to rebellion due to strictness. The case study we chose was Tom has appeared to be in his usual foul mood ever since arriving in class. On his way to sharpen his pencil, he bumps into Frank, who complains. Tom tells him loudly to shut up. Miss Barnes, the teacher, says, "Tom, go back to your seat." Tom wheels around, swears loudly, and says, "I'll go back when I'm ready." Morrish would advise Miss Barnes to have Tom repeat the behavior, but in an acceptable way. This method is Morrish's do it again theory and favorite consequence. This method enforces good behavior instead of punishing bad behavior. Morrish would also suggest Tom make an improvement plan or write a letter to Frank and apologize to defer from his embarrassment. The teacher should remind Tom of the rules and limits in place. Morrish suggests not to focus on the past behavior, but to focus on improvement. In conclusion, teachers should recognize misbehavior and enforce rules, plan fun, challenging activities, overlap and maintain withitness, be easygoing and nice, use less time lecturing and preaching, and model expectations. Ronald Morrish's real discipline will work with an elementary grade classroom, but could also work with any grade level. Thank you.